Three customers, three Silverados, three different generations of the same 5.3-liter V8, and I told all three of them the exact same thing when they drove off my lot. This engine will either be the best purchase of your life, or it will bankrupt you in oil changes and lifter replacements, and it all comes down to one letter, GM, buried in the fine print, AFM. I tracked all three trucks from under 100,000 miles to over 250,000 miles. Two of them went exactly how I predicted. One of them made me eat my words completely. Let's get into it. Truck number one belonged to a landscaper named Ray, who bought a 2005 Silverado 1500 with the 5.3-liter LM7 in 2019 for $6,200 with 118,000 miles on it. This is the Generation 3 Vortec, built from 1999 to 2007, and it is the version of this engine before GM ever touched the cylinder deactivation system. No AFM, no lifter drama, just a cast iron block, a factory hydraulic roller cam, and port fuel injection doing exactly what it was engineered to do. Ray used that truck to haul mulch, sod, and trailers full of equipment 6 days a week for 5 years straight. When he brought it back to me last month, the odometer read 254,000 miles. Total engine repairs in that entire stretch. One intake manifold gasket replacement at 190,000 miles because the original plastic gasket had finally given out, and a set of knock sensors and the harness that runs to them at the same time, because on these Generation 3 trucks, that harness sits directly in the engine valley under the intake, and rainwater and wash water pool right on top of it for 2 decades until it corrodes and throws a low voltage code. That is a known issue on every 1999 through 2007 GM V8, and the fix is cheap, about $450 done right, including new intake gaskets. Outside of that, Ray's truck never saw the inside of my shop for anything engine related. No lifter ticks, no oil consumption complaints, nothing. That is exactly what I expect out of a Generation 3 5.3, because GM had not yet introduced the system that causes almost every complaint you read about this engine online. Right now, clean 2003 through 2006 Silverados with the LM7 and 150,000 to 200,000 miles are selling for $6,000 to $9,000 depending on trim and region, and I genuinely think that is underpriced for what you are getting. When you go look at one, pop the hood and check for that intake gasket weeping coolant into the valley. It usually shows up as a sweet smell and a slightly low coolant level with no visible external leak. Pull the codes too. If you see P0327 or P0332, that is the knock sensor circuit telling you the harness is on its way out. Neither issue is a reason to walk away. Both are known, both are cheap, and neither one touches the internals of an engine that was built before GM started chasing fuel economy numbers at the expense of long-term durability. That system is active fuel management, and it shows up starting in 2007 with the Gen 4 versions of this engine, engines like the LMG and the LC9. AFM shuts down 4 of the 8 cylinders under light throttle to save fuel by deactivating the lifters on those cylinders using a solenoid and an oil pressure controlled pin. When that system works, you save maybe half a mile per gallon. When it does not, and it fails constantly on these trucks, those lifters collapse. They chew up the camshaft lobes underneath them, and you are looking at a full lifter and cam replacement that runs $2,500 to $4,000 at an independent shop. The LC9, specifically the aluminum block version used in half tons from 2007 through 2013, was bad enough that it became the center of a class action lawsuit over oil consumption and premature engine failure. The failure pattern is almost always the same. Sludge or thin oil restricts flow to the AFM solenoids. The locking pin inside the lifter cannot fully engage or disengage, and that lifter starts collapsing under valve spring pressure every time the system switches modes. Once one lifter goes soft, The cylinder next to it usually follows within a few thousand miles, and by the time you hear the tick at idle, the cam lobe underneath is already scored. So when a mechanic in his early 20s named Trevor showed up wanting me to inspect a 2012 Silverado with the LC9 and 94,000 miles, before he bought it, I told him flat out, budget for a lifter job somewhere before 180,000 miles, because that is the pattern I see in this shop constantly. If you're getting something out of this breakdown, hit subscribe now, because next week I'm covering the exact symptoms that tell you your AFM lifters are already failing before you hear a single tick. Here is where Trevor's truck completely upended what I expected. He bought it anyway, and at 102,000 miles, right after the factory warranty window most people worry about, he brought it back to me and asked what he could do to prevent the exact failure I had warned him about. I installed an AFM disabler, a small module that plugs into the OBD2 port and keeps the PCM from ever commanding cylinder deactivation, so the lifters never cycle between active and collapsed, and the oil pressure spikes that cause the failures never happen. Cost him $180 installed. From that point forward, Trevor drove that truck like he stole it, 30,000 miles a year for construction site runs, never babied it. I expected to see him back in my bay within 2 years with a lifter tick. I did not. That truck crossed 251,000 miles 4 months ago, and I personally pulled the valve covers to look at the lifters and the cam lobes out of pure curiosity. Clean, no scoring, no flat lobes, no metal in the oil. The single most common failure point on this entire generation of engine, completely avoided because one 20-minute part installed at 102,000 miles interrupted the exact mechanism that destroys these motors. I have seen hundreds of LC9 and LMG engines in my career, and I genuinely did not expect this outcome. That is the truck that shocked me, and it is the reason I now recommend that disabler to every single customer who owns a Gen 4 5.3 the moment they walk through my door, not after something breaks. The third truck takes us into the modern era, the Generation 5 Ecotec 3 platform that started in 2014, specifically the L83. This version added direct injection on top of AFM, which fixed some old problems and created a new one. Carbon buildup on the backs of the intake valves because direct injection sprays fuel straight into the cylinder instead of over the valve, so nothing washes the carbon off the way it did on the old port-injected engines. A retired school teacher named Diane bought a 2016 Silverado with the L83 and 61,000 miles for a camping trailer she wanted to tow twice a year. She was not a heavy driver, maybe 9,000 miles annually, which sounds like it should be easy on an engine, but light stop-and-go driving is actually when AFM cycles the most, because the system loves to deactivate cylinders at low, steady throttle, exactly like a school pickup line or a grocery run. At 187,000 miles, her truck developed a ticking noise on cold start that got progressively louder over about 3 weeks. I pulled the valve covers and found 2 collapsed lifters on the passenger bank and visible wear starting on the corresponding cam lobes. This is the newer DFM successor system in later trucks, but her 2016 still ran the original AFM hardware, and it failed in the textbook way. I replaced the lifters, the cam, and installed the same disabler I put on Trevor's truck so it would never happen again. Total repair bill was $3,100. She was not thrilled, but that truck is still running today. It crossed 252,000 miles 3 weeks ago, pulling that same camping trailer, and since the lifter job, 0 further issues. So here is what 3 trucks and roughly 750,000 combined miles taught me. The Gen 3, no AFM, is still the most bulletproof half-ton V8 GM has ever built. And the only thing that will get you on one is the knock sensor harness corroding in the valley, which is a cheap and predictable fix. The Gen 4 and Gen 5 engines with AFM are a coin flip if you leave the system alone, and the lawsuit history in my own shop records back that up completely. But that coin flip stops being a gamble the moment you disable the system, and Trevor's truck is living proof. 251,000 miles and factory clean lifters on an engine family that fails constantly without that one change. Diane's truck proves the flip side: the same engine, no intervention, and a $3,100 repair bill waiting at 187,000 miles like clockwork. If you are shopping for a used half-ton right now and you keep seeing 5.3-liter Silverados and Sierras dirt cheap because everyone online is scared of AFM horror stories, do not walk away from the truck. Walk away from the fear and go check the build date instead. If it is a 2007 through 2019 model with AFM or DFM, budget $150 to $200 for a disabler the same week you buy it, not after you hear the tick. That single decision is the difference between the truck that shocked me and the truck that cost my customer $3,000. I want to be clear about something because I do not want you thinking every AFM truck is a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. Plenty of these engines run 200,000 miles with the system left completely alone and never miss a beat, especially if the previous owner was religious about oil changes every 5,000 miles with the correct Dexos-rated oil. What I am telling you is the odds shift hard in your favor the moment you remove the variable entirely, and after watching Trevor's lifters come out clean at 251,000 miles on an engine family with a documented lawsuit behind it, I am not willing to call that a coincidence anymore. I have since put that same disabler on 4 more customer trucks, and I plan on tracking every one of them the same way I track these 3. If this kind of real-world data from my own shop floor is useful to you, subscribe, because I track every single vehicle that comes through my bay, and I put out breakdowns like this every week. I have a full video walking through exactly how to tell if your AFM lifters are failing right now, tapping noise, oil consumption, misfire codes, all of it, and it is linked right here. 23 years of pulling wrenches taught me that reputation and reality are not always the same thing, and sometimes the engine everyone is scared of just needs one 20-minute fix to become the one that outlasts everything else on the lot. Drive safe, take care of your truck, and it will take care of you.